Recording that live today. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Vale, Whitehorse and South Oxfordshire District Council's Joint Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Catherine Foxhall from Vale, and I'll be chairing this meeting. I have Mark Minion from Senior Management Team on my right and Candida Basilio from Democratic Services in support this evening. This meeting is being held in Abbey House, Abingdon, and being recorded to put up on our YouTube channels later on. Voting members of this committee are here in person as required, and we have officers and cabinet members in the room and online. This meeting is, as I said, being recorded for the public to view later on. Those of you who are online, I think you're all well familiar with the format, but if you could keep your microphones muted while not speaking, that would be really helpful. But do put your yellow hand up if you want to speak, and we'll come to you. For those who are in the room, the nearest evacuation procedure in the event of emergency is to evacuate through the nearest exit, which is around the corridor to our right, and assemble in the car park. We have one substantial item this evening, so I'm not anticipating taking a break, but if anybody does need to take a break, please do let me know, and we can do that. Please keep mobile phones silent or off, and committee members, unless your phones are where you have your meeting papers, please don't use them during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we'll confirm the live stream has ended and sign out as we leave. So this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting, but I don't think we have any members of the public registered to speak this evening, do we? No. Okay, perfect. So item 1 on the agenda, Chair's announcements. We have one main item of business this evening, which is the review of the Saba car park management contract for 2024-2025. So it's a backward-looking item primarily, but we do have some additional questions which we've asked the cabinet members and officers to look at ahead of this meeting this evening, and I'm very grateful for the extra work that's been involved in that. So we have Councillors Sue Cooper and Robert Clegg with us, the cabinet members for Environment for South and Vale respectively. We also have Andrew Busby, Head of Development and Corporate Landlord, online, and John Backley, who's our Technical Services Manager, online as well. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm delighted to welcome Nigel Griffin and Andy Marr from Saba, who are representing our car park contractors this evening and will help us go through some of the detail in their report. Apologies for absence. Item 2, Candida, would you please let us know about any apologies?
Yeah, of course. We've had apologies today from Councillors Andy Cook, Joe Robb and Ron Batstone, and we have 2 substitute members attending today, Councillor Max Thompson and Councillor Kira Bentley, so thank you.
Thank you both for joining us, and thank you as ever to other members of the committee for joining us. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. We have 2 sets of minutes from previous meetings which were held in quite quick succession. On Monday the 10th of November, we discussed the safety partnership and local government reorganisation full proposal, so that was a big meeting. And then on Monday the 1st of December, we had a call-in meeting for waste of vehicle purchase decision, which again was a joint decision between the 2 councils. If I take them separately, if members of the committee who were here for those meetings, if you could let me know whether you're happy that the minutes for Monday 10th of November are a true record.
Happy.
Proposed and seconded and thirded and fourth. Thank you very much. And then also minutes of the meeting from the 1st of December, but if those who were at that meeting could let me know if there are any issues. Everyone happy? Great, thank you ever so much. Thank you, Candida, for going through particularly that LGR meeting. That was cool. Okay, guys, declaration of interest. Do I have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, non-registrable interests, or conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. Other than that, we all use car parks. I don't have any urgent business under item 5. Item 6, public participation. We don't have any questions or statements from members of the public this evening. Work schedule and dates for joint scrutiny meetings. Currently our work schedule is looking quite light, but we are anticipating that as we get firmer details, particularly of local government reorganisation, as the government confirms what is likely to happen, we'll be able to really start looking at those proposals and speaking to Cabinet and talking about how that works. As ever, committee members and all members of the council are very welcome, and indeed members of the public are very welcome to suggest items to us to add to the work programme. So if you do have any thoughts or ideas or issues that you're interested in, please do let Jo and I know. But the next meeting for this committee is currently scheduled for July, which will be after the annual meetings of the council. Item 8, update on previous recommendations from joint scrutiny committees. So feedback from our discussion on local government reform, I did note that a number of comments were incorporated into the final document. So I appreciate the attention that was given by Cabinet members and officers in what was an incredibly busy period. Cabinet did also reconsider, as requested, the purchase, as we recommended, the purchase of the waste vehicles decision that we called in, but did go on to confirm, both councils went on to confirm the original decision. There is a tracker for our recommendations for the committee to look at. If there are any queries, any concerns that recommendations we've made are not being looked at, please do get back to me. Okay, item 9, we have our main item for this evening, which is the SABA contract review 2024-2025. SABA are the company we contract to look after our car parks. Every year we have a review of the performance. So as I said, this will be backward looking, but following last year, following the previous time that we looked at this contract, we did ask Cabinet members to look at, ahead of this meeting, 3 additional elements that had particularly come up in discussion and that are particularly pertinent at the moment. So one was paying conditions. Another item was the condition of assets, which had been causing some concern. And when we talk about assets, we're primarily meaning payment machines. And then we've asked the Cabinet members if they could make some comments on local government reorganisation alignment and how we are looking at this car park contract in the light of what's coming down the road. So I'm very happy to welcome Councillor Sue Cooper and Councillor Robert Clegg. And if you'd like to join us at the table and introduce this item, please.
Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting us back for this. It's probably 2 or 3 years since I did this, actually. I've had a year or 2 off, but things don't change that much. And I can remember at that meeting saying that we ought to look ahead and see what's going to happen next, which is indeed what we're doing. Now, I'm Sue Cooper, and here we have Robert Clegg, who's new to this portfolio, but learning rapidly, as we all do. I'll go through this. John Batley has very kindly done a PowerPoint presentation. Now, I don't know whether we've got the wherewithal to put it so you can see it, or can you each see it individually on your screens anyway?
Can I just check, John, are you happy for me to share that on the screen?
If you want it. If you're all happy looking at your own, it really doesn't matter, because I've got a paper copy actually, so in case I get lost.
Happy if that's easier for people in the room to see it on the screen, yes.
Right.
Yeah, if we can, that would be useful, I think. Thank you.
Just
Okay, I mean, the first page actually goes through the three things that we're going to be looking at tonight, which is based on the questions that you put. That's the pay and conditions under which SABA operates, asset conditions, i.e. the machines and their future, and the contract renewal and strategic alignment with the other councils, as well as looking at the KPIs for last year. So have we got there? Yes, good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So we've got, if you can see all the KPIs, they're actually pretty good marks, as you will have seen. Does anybody want to raise any queries on any of those? Let's say they're all, well, there's a large number of them, 100%. And those that aren't, it's, you know, only the occasional dropping off.
Councillor Snowden.
I don't know which point to raise this, but are they marking their own homework here? Because I noticed that they've got 100% on applying to complaints, etc. I've just checked my emails that they haven't responded to one of my emails from early March, April time. Who checks it? Because I copied in officers, South and Vale officers.
Right. I don't know. I've been told that we didn't actually get, but well, we've got two methods of people feeding back when they're not happy with the system. One is a questionnaire that goes out, and we get actually very few people responding to that. And the other is individual emails.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know. John, can you help? Who checks that the emails have been answered by SABA or us?
We have monthly contract meetings with SABA, and we do ask them to report on the emails that they received and the complaints that they've received, and they should be copying us into any complaints that they receive, so that officers are aware what they're saying. We if there are any issues, if there are any complaints, then the officers get involved to make sure those complaints are replied to. I'm very surprised if the council, I don't know which council it was that's raised that, but I'll certainly look into that if they haven't had a reply. It's a bit of a surprise.
Can I just say that these are for the last year that actually finished on the 31st of March.
2020.
So if it was in April, maybe, you know, it'll appear in next year's.
Just to clarify though, because I got copied in after when a resident wasn't getting the response they wanted, and that rolled into April when I asked questions. It was copied in customer service, South and Vale, and then they obviously pass it forward to the SABA email address, which is also.
Can I suggest, Councillor Snowden,
Yeah.
if you've got that, you
Yeah.
forward them on to me, and I'll look into that and see why they weren't responded to.
Councillor Cooper, can I suggest we carry on through the presentation, and we can always come back. I think we can come back to this item
Okay,
as part of the discussion once you've presented your whole
right.
presentation. Thank you.
So that's that chunk on KPIs, which I say pretty good by and large, but I wouldn't, you know, we'll see if there's other individual cases. Right. So we've got the one.
next one.
Who's moving it on?
Want me
Yes.
to do it?
Thank you very much. Well, we've got four pages. No, it's 3 pages of those. And then there's a summary one headed SABA performance 2024-25. That's it. Right. So I don't know if you want me to read it as well as you reading it. Successful rollout of digital permits to council staff. It seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? Contributed with experience and insight to the development of the Vale Whitehorse new car park tariff boards. Again, that probably seems quite a long time ago to most people now. They've been working in partnership well. As you heard from John Backley just now, there are regular meetings between the two organisations. And yes,
Councillor
there's a,
Cooper, I've just Andy Marr's got his hand up.
oh right,
I've just noticed. I'm not sure whether this was for a previous item from Councillor Snowdon or whether you
No.
wanted to come in on these KPIs.
No, it's absolutely fine. I was just making sure that if councillors would like Saba to sort of feed into this part of the presentation, would be more than happy to, just to give an overview. It's just an option.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. If you wanted to talk specifically about the KPIs and the performance, that would be really helpful. Because you obviously you supplied us with the report as well, which we've had, and it's been very useful. Thank you. So yes, please.
Absolutely. So Nigel, would you mind just picking up on this particular slide and maybe just roll back and just give a bit of an overview of the KPIs in general?
Yes, more than happy to. If the presentation could be rolled back a couple of slides. If we hold it there, go back a step. I see if you hold it there. So that's the beginning of the KPI review. What you can't see on that to the right hand side of the score is any additional comments. It was just impossible to fit it onto the slides and be able to read it. So I have marked to the right hand side there some orange sections, which if you're happy, I will just give a little bit of context to that particular KPI. So if I start on the top one at KPI 1.1, this measures sort of interactions with council officers, member of the publics, can cover a whole range of different topics and subjects. What we notice in this particular year, or what I notice, is that there was a bit of a shift change in the volume of incoming correspondence, which involved a much higher volume of customer service coming from the council's customer service team, which was a new thing for us. We hadn't experienced that prior, so we've had to adjust to that to make sure that we answered those correspondences, in a timely manner and accurately. And to my knowledge, there's been no issues with that. But again, to give a bit of context, areas such as freedom of information, in the last half of the year, we had 71 interactions in relation to freedom of information, where we've supplied information back to the councils to make sure that they can meet their statutory requirements. Another big area is something called breathing space. We had 192 interactions with breathing space in the last half of this particular year, which is exceptionally high and just indicates a shift change. Whilst the score there 100%, doesn't necessarily reflect the extra effort put in when we're dealing with stuff that's new. Moving on to KPI 2.
Sorry, Rachel, to interrupt you. Please,
Sure.
could you explain what breathing space is, please?
So that's to do with people that are financially struggling. They can apply for a suspension in debt recovery. And in our case, that's to do with penalty charge notices. So they're put into a limbo state called breathing space, where for a period of time, debt can't be recovered, giving them a chance to sort out their position and maybe improve it to then be able to pay the debt back. But there's a process that starts from one of the council departments, forgive me, I can't remember which one. It ends up on our door. We then have to make sure that the affected people aren't included in our activities, such as PCN, or penalty charge notice management. If they are a penalty charge notice, we then have to inform people that we have somebody that is affected by this breathing space.
That's very useful. Thank you, Nigel.
Okay, no problem. So just to move on a little bit quickly, KPI 2.2, disputes to be replied within 10 working days. So in this particular year, the administration team have worked very diligently to ensure that, and they've set their own targets on this, in the sense that they want to answer the challenges that we get against penalty charge notices within 5 days. And the vast majority of that in that year was done. To give an idea of scale, So in this year, we had 713 challenges received, which is a 24% increase on the previous year. And I would say, ballpark figure, on average, 80% of those were answered within 5 days. 2.3, there's an acceptable target of CEO, civil enforcement officer errors, where we end up having to write off or cancel penalty charge notices because of their errors. We are allowed a 7% target, but for this year, we have cut that down to 2.87, and as an average through the year. But we did improve that further still towards the end of the year with some extra coaching and a project that I personally worked on and delivered. KPI 3.1. So trolling, it might need to go to the next slides. Oh no, it is there, 3.1, yeah. So we have worked hard to develop, recruit and nurture a full CEO team through this year, which we've been able to do and secure for the whole of the year. That's helped in the results there because the previous year was 89.10%. So this year is 97.61. That's a vast improvement, but helped a lot by having a stable and committed civil enforcement team. If I can just ask the slide to go forward one more. Thank you. So slight amber result there for KPI 4.4. That again has changed dramatically over the years in the sense that we used to get an awful lot of over-the-counter payments, checks, cash, that sort of thing. But as we all know, that has changed in the last few years. So we don't get a lot of incoming over-the-counter payments, predominantly by checks. I think we had 27 in the whole of the year, but unfortunately, a few of those were not paid at the earliest opportunity into the cash office through errors made within the administration team. But with some mitigation, that the person that missed the opportunity was covering somebody who was on holiday and wasn't wholly familiar with the processes that we adopt in regard to this particular KPI. But it's all been noted, all been fed back, and we've improved upon that for this year. If you'd like to slide forward one more.
While you're doing that, in case anybody wonders, the reference in 4.4 to payments received at 135 refers to our old offices, in case anybody didn't realise. Obviously out of date now, and one hopes they get updated in due course, but of course the cash payments have gone right down anyway. Sorry, do continue.
No problem, will do. So if we look at KPI 8.8, that's about reporting accidents and incidents that happen in the car parks. There's 3 in the year. One was a member of public where they tripped up a raised surface in the charter car park that was not clearly marked. But that was subsequently recovered and sorted out by the council's facilities team. We had one accident with a civil enforcement officer where they had a slip, trip and fall, but that was fully investigated and found to be a genuine accident whereby the civil enforcement officer was distracted by a member of the public and forgot that behind them they had a step down onto the car park surface. And the other one was where a civil enforcement officer had a rough interaction with a member of the public. But again, that was fully investigating, and coaching was given to support that moving forward. 8.2 is to do with car park inspection surveys we carry out every quarter on behalf of the council to look at surface and general condition of the car parks. The issue there really was to do with the administration follow-up of those surveys being completed through a number of times of the year. There's peak activity with requests made by the council to us, which we supported, but there was a drop-off in doing some other activities as a result. But these were all agreed with the council officers in our regular meetings, and all was completed in a timely manner as agreed. And then the last one there, 8.4 machine faults. So the previous year, 23-24, the result was 88.17%. You can see this year's 97.57%. So a marked improvement in that. Still have a few niggles with the supplier where they don't carry enough spare parts. We've had issues where over the Christmas period, for example, engineers weren't available to answer the calls that we needed. So we had to wait until they were available in the new year. And there are some other issues such as sort of electrical power supply outages, which are beyond our control and required a third-party involvement, like an electrician, which we had to do and source through the council departments to get those sort of things repaired and resolved. So, I mean, hopefully that gives you a flavour that despite, even though that there's 100% a large across the board there, doesn't always reflect the efforts that the team have put in. The best we can do is 100%, but in some areas there, hopefully I've given an indication that we've tried to go above and beyond. That's the KPIs. If you'd like to move on to the next one, which is the top line details. As already outlined on the first 3 or 4 of these, it's just information where we have contributed and worked in cohabitation with the council officers and other suppliers to deliver projects. So the top one's all about the My Permit project, which was successfully rolled out towards the end of this particular year. And there was very limited impact felt by the change. So we can consider that a successful rollout. Yes, we did help with the tariff boards, the designing, the input on what they need to say, and then I took on the responsibility of ensuring that through our suppliers that they were manufactured and installed on time in conjunction with the price changes that took place in April of that year. And I'm pleased to say that went absolutely perfectly with no issues at all. Nothing noticed by the public. There was a drive at the request of the council officers to improve permit sales, which we did through very proactive management of waiting lists, to the extent that we got the waiting list down to 0. And moving forward, that's allowed us to be a bit more proactive and positive moving forward with permit inquiries and sales. And final one on that page for me is the successful installation of the trial Tickless and solar powered machines after many months of working through the project in conjunction with suppliers and with the council. That was delivered in April at the same time as the price change and the tariff board rollout. So quite a busy month in April, but I'm pleased to say that it all went very well with no impact felt in the car parks. I think, Andy, you were going to take over the next slide.
If the committee is still willing to allow us to continue with this, I appreciate it's quite a bit of detail, but if you're comfortable. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Nigel, for giving us a run through the KPIs and the summary. So really here, 4 sections, just outlining some of the over and above services that we've completed. So Nigel sort of alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but created a bespoke training course for civil enforcement officers, and that was all focused around delivering very high standards and customer service. It was really well received by the team, and the knock-on effect really is in terms of the productivity of the civil enforcement officers, but importantly the reduction of CEO errors, which fell this year versus the previous year. Second point is all around the introduction of body cameras. So predominantly this was first used in Henley, but it can and is used in other towns as well. So this is a body cam situated as part of the uniform. It allows the CEO to have a little bit of confidence in their job role. Certainly if they do get threatened, we're not always selling flowers, so we do get some hostility on the odd occasion. So great for that, but also great as a learning tool. And we have seen the quality of PCNs and customer service improved. We rolled out a British Parking Association training course to some of our notice processing team. So this was a industry-backed training and coaching session that we rolled out to the notice processing team, in which case they became sort of train the trainers and could take that information that they learnt back to the office, and it's now applied across the whole activity and service. And lastly, really, we worked with the council to integrate a new telephone payment platform. So this is the cashless parking system. Was once with a company called Murada. That transitioned across to Pay by Phone, who's a major national player in cashless parking systems, and that was successfully rolled out in 2025. I think that last slide there with no, sorry, it's the next one. Thank you. Sorry, the next slide. That's brilliant. Perfect. Yeah. So we struggled, and I think in previous committees and reviews, we've struggled with the feedback element, trying to get feedback from surveys. It's not always difficult, but this page is really just to show you that we do get feedback from customers, and we've got feedback here and some examples of assisting with refunds. We got some feedback from a councillor that we've done some great work dealing with a car crash in one of the car parks, helping an elderly lady relative to her car being broken down, and the CEO going out of his way to assist that particular lady in question. And even the note on the right-hand side from Mr. Harris actually got a PCN sticker on his windscreen, but it wasn't actually a PCN. It was a polite notice just to advise that the customer actually had a flat tyre. So just a few examples. As I say, we don't sell flowers for a living. It can be quite difficult in parking at times, but it does show that we do actually get some positive feedback. I think over to the next slide. Thank you. So, John, I don't know if you want me to pick this up, but it was really just to relay back to the committee that we did take on board some of the comments from the previous scrutiny review. And I'm pleased to say that in terms of the paying conditions, we did honour our promise to go to the real living wage for the staff, and that will be maintained for this year. And the asset condition and replacement, so Nigel's already spoken a little bit about that. We did roll out a trial set of machines for the council really to view two types of brand new pay and display machines as they look forward really to the future and in terms of investment in new machinery. And I think that's probably concluded from Saba's perspective. I don't know if there are any questions.
Councillor Bentley, then Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Can I just one of the statistics that stuck in my mind, and I don't know if I heard it right. Did you say there were 700 challenges to the?
Yes, there was. Yes, there was 700, but that's not a high figure. That's quite normal.
And do you break those down into smaller categories? Can we get a feel for what a lot of those might be for? Sounds like a lot to me. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, to give an example of this particular, especially in relation to the My Permit rollout to staff, some staff struggled to grasp the concept of using the My Permit. So they didn't put themselves into a parking session, so the civil enforcement officers couldn't see their parking session, so they would have been issued a penalty charge notice. They would then challenge that notice because in their mind they got a permit. We would actually ultimately cancel that penalty charge notice challenge, because yes, they do have a valid permit, but they didn't operate the system correctly, and that would have been fed back. So that's just one example, and quite a lot of those 713 will be to do with that particular scenario because of the change from an old paper system to a digital system and people grasping the concept of managing that digital system. So that's just an example. A whole range of different people that don't display blue badges but have them. People that put pay and display tickets in their pocket instead of putting them on the dashboard in the car for the civil enforcement officer to see it. There's a whole range of different reasons. So even though there's 713, they don't all get paid because there's a process of managing those challenges where we might actually end up cancelling them legitimately within the council's cancellation policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. That was very helpful. I guess my questions to Andy, and I mean, they're interrelated, and they may be beyond the scope of this meeting. So if they are, please forgive me. I haven't attended one of these before where we've gone through SABA performance. You mentioned civil enforcement errors have been falling. I wondered if you could expand on that, unless it's beyond the scope of this meeting. And similarly, you mentioned threats of hostility to civil enforcement officers. And I just wondered whether you had figures on that as well, or any sort of thing further you could add. And the final question was to do with this training course, which sounds great. And again, I don't know if this is private to SABA or whether this is something that can be made available to members of the committee to get a sense of the sort of training that is now being offered to civil enforcement officers.
I'm quite happy to answer that. On the last point to do with the training session, a copy of that was given to the council officers for their awareness. So I'm sure they can supply that through that. If not, I'm more than happy to supply a copy of it. It's on a PowerPoint presentation, but it's quite clear what the subject matter is, etc., etc. Forgive me, I've lost track of the first two questions.
It's fine. To be honest, they both actually relate to training. So I'm delighted to hear that we can have access to that, because I always like to see the sort of training materials being offered. And I guess within that training, is there anything on errors, i.e. like
Yes.
when the civil enforcement officer makes an error, or indeed on dealing with matters of threats and hostility?
Sure. So on the error side of it, obviously I do review it very closely and very regularly, and I was finding there was silly errors being made, for example, a misrepresentation of a registration number, what we call a VRM, or it might be that they've issued the notice but in the wrong location, or they might have used the wrong council paper, so they've issued a South PCN but on Vale paper, therefore it invalidates the actual PCN itself. So those sort of errors, there were a few repeating ones that really has an impact on the council, because there is a cost connected to issuing a penalty charge notice. And my concern was that the council are paying for that but not getting the revenue from the notice, because we're having to cancel it through the errors made by the civil enforcement team. So I picked up on the fact that there was more than I was happy to accept. Therefore, that led to this training package to try and mitigate that and reduce it. In terms of the aggression, what we're talking about here really is in Henley-on-Thames. That's predominantly where we get the levels of aggression. Now, it's people that are unhappy about the way we go about our activity, or they don't believe they should receive the notice that we've issued them or whatever. And I had one or two sort of email correspondence in relation to these sorts of instances where I couldn't quantify categorically whether the fault lay with the civil enforcement officer or whether the fault lay with the member public that was making the issue. So we took that as a problem away, looked at how we can resolve it. That led to the body camera system then being introduced, where now the civil enforcement team, whenever they're patrolling in Henley-on-Thames, must wear this body camera system. And there was a whole package of policy and procedures that had to be developed that were contract specific, for that. And again, all that was done with councillors' knowledge, and they should have record of all these policies and procedures in relation to that. But the moment we put in body cameras, the negative interactions have dropped off a cliff. So it protects the civil enforcement officer, but it also promotes good customer service.
Yeah, I think it's a good training tool, isn't it, Nigel? If you can step back and review the incident, as you say, to have a look at it, we can take any sort of particular corrective action with that civil enforcement officer and complete retraining. So it has multiple different bits of value, if you will. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's fascinating insight. Councillor Gregory.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay. The first one, Saba said that they had run a survey on behalf of the council. Is there any reason why the council didn't run that survey ourselves, just in terms of like marking their own homework, as Councillor Snowden mentioned earlier? I don't know who's best placed to answer that.
I can answer that, Chair. It's a contract. Thanks. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's a contractual obligation, so it's written in the contract that SABA have to carry out as part of the KPIs customer surveys. But again, these are analysed, and the results of the customer surveys are presented by SABA to council officers every month when we carry out the contract monitoring meeting, which is a formal minuted meeting. It means that we get full view of the results of that survey. So that's why it's SABA led, because the inquiries are coming into SABA, and then SABA have that interaction with the customer, so they can send out. Basically, it's a link to an electronic survey that the customer then fills in and gives the feedback, and then that is shared by SABA with council officers.
Right, that makes sense. And I think it's been previously mentioned that there's been a struggle to hire enforcement teams and officers. Is that improved at all?
Yeah, so Nigel, I'll pick this up. So yes, I would say, I think Nigel alluded to having quite a robust, and we have now a full team which has been retained, and I think that does add to the quality of the service, including the fact that additional training has been given to these individuals. So I think it's helped with the wage packet and the structure of that, and I think yeah, we've had a full team now for some time.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. That's really useful to hear. I think we'll pick that up with cabinet members in a minute. Councillor Snowden and then Councillor Gaveston.
I'm going a bit off your report, because as an opposition councillor, I'm used to seeing rose-tinted reports, so I've looked elsewhere. And looking at the income, you mentioned the ruffians in Henley, but is it the case that you get more trouble there because you actually enforce it there? Because I'm just looking at the figures here. The amount of PCNs for the year before was in Didcot with well over 100 bays was 2,500. And one of the Henley ones was 23,000. The other one was 32,000. Didcot Park drivers just really good and behave themselves, and Henley just don't like paying tickets, or is it not? Are you not enforcing? Are you not visiting Didcot as often because it's so far on to the west?
If everybody's happy for me to try and answer that.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay, so we work
Office camera, so we can see him.
Sure. Okay, the camera's on. I was just making sure there's no issue with connectivity.
Thank you.
So,
just for reference, Nigel, I'm referring to the April 2023-24 income.
Yeah, apologies, but I don't have that in front of me. But to give you some context to answer the question as best I can, we work to a structured patrolling matrix, which has been agreed with council officers. So no town is favoured over any other town. We need to patrol Didcot as often as we patrol Henley-on-Thames, as we do Wallingford and Abingdon and all the other towns that we work in across the 2 districts. That matrix has been agreed with council officers in terms of the number of visits per location, how many times a week we need to visit, and that sort of thing. Clearly, though, Henley-on-Thames has the highest volume of turnover of vehicles by far. And the way that Henley car park users are, it just invites us to do the job that we're there to do, because they don't necessarily follow the rules of the car park. For whatever reason, I can't be sure, but that's the truth of it. So I don't know if that sort of answers the question about why Henley might spike and others don't as much.
I'm very pleased with that answer. You're just reassuring me that Didcot driving are more considerate.
It would appear that way.
I would hate to get involved in favouritism of various towns.
We certainly
But I
don't
think the
favour.
key point is that there's obviously a clear method for what's being enforced,
Yes.
but there are different characteristics of perhaps related to tourism,
Yeah.
and there's lots of different reasons why. But
That makes sense.
I don't think Didcot gets tourism.
I mean, there's lots of lovely things in it. Yes, okay. Councillor Gavrishak, would you like to
Nigel, this
speak
is
up for your?
Without starting a fight.
Nigel, this is Stefan, Councillor Stefan from Henley. And actually, you're quite correct, because if you actually looked at the reports from Oxfordshire County Council about on-street reports, there were £140,000 worth of fines last year for Henley. So clearly, you know, Henley drivers. Well, I won't comment on whether they feel that they can just get away with it, which clearly they can't. So carry on doing your job. It's very good. By the way, on the Sabbath Performance 2024, the Hi Maria comment, I've been in conversation with the council on a different matter. That's me. And your lady and gentleman were brilliant when sorting out a car crash in the car park. There was a car crash in the car park. I won't go into the details. It was actually a friend of mine, but there were mitigating reasons. But your operatives were absolutely, as it says here, they were swift and professional, and you can be proud of them. They did a brilliant job in securing the site and making sure that everyone was safe, because it was very dangerous, because the car reversed at great speed into another car. So it could have been a lot worse than it was. So well done for that. I will try and endeavour that my constituents actually improve, or actually the coppers of SODC are doing quite well on it. So we'll do it. But on a serious note, if you do find that in Henley, I am being specific, if you do find in Henley, there are certain behaviours that should not be happening, because the operatives should not be accosted. Absolutely not. If there are certain behaviours, then if you can feed them back through John Blackley, he's got my email, and you can say, well, these are the kinds of behaviour that Henley are being uncooperative with. So, but anyway, well done for your performance. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to come back to this question that Councillor Gregory just raised about pay and conditions for your staff, because I think one of the concerns with this committee has always been the well-being and conditions for your staff, and I do thank you guys for reflecting on the comments and the difficulties you've been having recruiting staff, because it was from that discussion in this committee that we then went to both councils and agreed with both councils about a real living wage commitment for contract staff. But I'm just wondering, is that something, having now seen, you've mentioned that you think the better pay has been a factor in improving your kind of CEO percentages and their performance and being able to implement training and having a full complement of staff. Is that something you've now, is it just us that you're paying the real living wage, or is that something you're rolling out across your whole organisation, having seen the result?
So I think it really is dependent on the contract. So, for example, we do have some contracts in London. Those individuals do get the London living wage. Some do get the real living wage. It's really dependent on what's written in the contract. But we took the steps, I think, on the back end of the Scrutiny Committee's report last time around and reviewed it internally. I think Nigel had been struggling with recruitment in general. And it seemed it was the right thing to do, and we've deployed it, and I think that has helped with both the recruitment but equally the retention of those staff. So we are set to continue that for this year as well.
That's really good to hear. Thank you. That's useful. Councillor Roberts, have you got any other questions for Saba? I'm conscious we've also got our cabinet members here, and we could shift the conversation.
One for Saba, which was about permit schemes.
Okay.
How many parts do we actually run that have got permit schemes? I don't think all of them have. And is it clear how they're supposed to let the officers, as they're going round, realise that they do actually have a permit? Because I know that you could purchase your permit scheme through the council, I think. So there may be a disconnect between telling one organisation and another organisation. And clearly there must be some system whereby the people going around know that they've got a permit.
SODC, I know that.
Andy and Nigel, are you able to?
Yeah, I can try and answer that for you if that's okay. So in truth, at the moment, we're running two systems. We're running a paper system that's still active. So that's clear and obvious. If they display it, we can see it. Therefore, we got no problem with that. The electronic permits, the My Permit system, is a digital platform that the civil enforcement officers can see the active and live parking sessions if they are booked by the permit holder. The civil enforcement officers can see that on their handhelds. So the data, once the parking session has been booked correctly on the My Permit system, that data then is translated to the civil enforcement officer's handset, and they'll be able to see instantly whether there's a valid parking session for that particular vehicle or not. There was obviously, it's a new system. We're much more wiser to it now. I believe there's still some intention to roll out further parts of the My Permit to the wider public, and we'll make sure that they're fully informed as to how to operate that system once they migrate across. But like I said, when we went to the My Permit system for the first time, it was rolled out to staff, and there's hundreds of them. It was rolled out to councillors, and it was rolled out to a small percentage of local businesses. But the level of difficulties experienced at the time of launch, in my view, was really very low, considering the numbers that were then required to use the system. I don't know if that answers the question for you.
Which does that mean we're now going to be rolling out the digital system much wider, and that we should be going over to that for?
Right, not to speak on behalf of John, but I believe that's the intention, yes.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking to roll out digital permits, but unlike the staff permits, they're free. The digital permits will be paid for. So we're just making sure that the payment system and the necessary processes are all in place before we launch that properly.
Okay, so that would be, because I believe the councillors do get the permit system. Well, we used to be able to apply for the permit system, don't we? So yeah, so that will be being rolled out through the whole system coming soon.
Yeah, it will.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, can I just, I have used the system when it was first introduced. I'm not the most technically competent of people, and I suspect as many people with my level of confidence, if not worse, would you believe? And it was quite clunky and it's completely dependent on having an app on your mobile phone. In various rural areas, I'm thinking of Farringdon, you can't get a signal. You have to actually leave the car park, or you couldn't at the time, to actually use it. Now I know that you have to book in advance. Don't always know how long meetings are going to be, etc. And it's also, I feel, potentially open to a little bit of abuse, because it is only specifically when you are attending council business. But it's easy to think, well, I just nip into town and be an extra half an hour, etc. So I just wonder, you know, whether you had that sort of feedback, or what your comment is about not being able to use the app.
So the app for staff and for councillors, when you book on it, it gives you the whole day permit to park up to midnight, so you don't have to worry about how long the meeting goes on for.
I'm just going to interject there, because I believe that we shouldn't be able to use the car parks for free as a councillor if I'm not on council business. But what is my alternative? You know, if my pass is for the day, I can't then go and repay, or do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, oh, well, I'm here and I've got a free pass for the day. That could be seen as a exploitation of my free pass.
It could do, but that could be the same if you have a paper pass as well. It's not specific to a digital permit. If you have a paper permit, there is a certain amount of trust that you use it when you're on council business only.
Okay, thank you. And the app question?
The app, yeah, it does.
Accessibility.
There is accessibility on apps, but potentially, if you know where you're going to park and you know you're going to use the car park, you can set up the app and you can use the app from home where you do have access to a Wi-Fi. And then when you get to the car park, you don't have to worry about anything because you've already booked your parking in. So you can use the app ahead of time because you know you're going to go where you're going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, from all your comments. I'm conscious we have one slide left on the presentation, which is much more, I think, a conversation to be had with our cabinet members. So I'd like to come back to it, which is around contract end and future alignment of contracts through local government reorganisation. I think this was something we were interested in looking at going forward. So if you could comment on that, Councillor Cooper, I'd be really great.
Yeah, well, basically we've got a 2-year extension because of LGR. I mean, it might, you know, some people might have wanted to bring the service in-house, for example, but it really doesn't make sense at this moment to do that until we know who we're going to be in a council with in future. I think most of you know that Oxfordshire County Council has a contract for managing civil parking enforcement. And I gather, and other people probably know better, that that's up for a new renewal soon. On the other hand, West Berks have an in-house scheme. And so if we wanted to do that, it would be much easier to join in with an existing scheme than to start and try doing something on our own at the moment. I mean, Oxfordshire is also complicated by the fact that West Oxfordshire doesn't charge for its car parks anyway. So it does make sense to wait. So personally, I'm very happy that we work with an extension for the time being. I'm afraid this is a common situation now. So anything else we need to mention on that? I mean,
possibly on the employee liability info becoming available 18 months beforehand.
Oh yes, that's useful.
So if we were to look at doing something in-house, then the to-pay process, which is nothing to do with concealing hair loss, it's transfer and undertaking protection employment. But we'd have that information 18 months before, so that would be in a month or two. so that when we actually come to making that decision about whether or not we're going to bring the service in-house, then we could start having those conversations at about the same time as we should hopefully know what LGR geography we're going to move towards.
Sorry, could you just explain a little bit more about what information you're talking about actually being available, and where does that information come from? Is that from SABA?
Comes from SABA. I believe it's around numbers of staff and so on, but I don't know the complete details.
Do you want me to answer that? So effectively, it's the employee's liability information. So it gives information on wages, benefits, pensions. Really, what it will do, it will allow the council to see what the resource cost is relative to looking at a potential of an in-house solution.
Excellent. Okay.
We've recently done an exercise where some captive staff have come back in-house to South and Vale, only a small number, but we had that employee liability information ahead of their transfer. It's part of 2P arrangements you have to do.
So it sounds like, as cabinet members, you're on top of that and you understand that and you're conscious of that, and I think that's really important in terms of welfare of staff and ongoing continuity as well. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that one. Committee members, have we got any other questions for our cabinet members specifically? I would like to ask you, given what we've heard from our colleagues at SABA around their experiences with paying a real living wage, and the positive effect that that's had on their ability to deliver their contract successfully. Obviously, it was disappointing that the two councils have gone back on our own commitment to ensure that contract renewals, contractors pay a real living wage. But I'm just wondering whether that kind of information, how you feel about that. Because I think it's really significant that our contractors are saying actually paying a real living wage has had a marked effect on the ability to deliver a contract effectively.
Yes, I mean, I would totally agree with you, and it's not the only contract that I'm aware of where it's happened. I don't know whether I'm supposed to, broadcast what's happened in other contracts, but another one,
not the same.
where there's a living wage now being paid, and they've noticed that employee retention and then consequent ability to train people up properly so they become members of a team and feel generally better about their employment. So yes, I think it's something that is worthwhile.
Thank you.
And there is one other thing that we're supposed to be talking about, and that's the asset condition and replacement.
Yes.
Ticket machines. I gather that you heard that they've done trials on 2 different sorts. The results of those trials, we haven't seen them yet, but they are imminent, shall we say. And they will be used to create an ICMD for us to sign, agreeing the purchase of new machines, and I've ascertained that they will be installed in the order in which they're most needed. For example, I'm getting lots of complaints about the machines in Wallingford, and it's noted that they're particularly bad, so that will probably be one of the first places to do. And likewise, if you become aware of any particular machine or any particular car park that's suffering, do feed back to us, that we can make sure that as soon as we've got these new machines, they are installed where they're most needed first.
I'd add to that part of the process of installing these new machines, because they'll be solar powered, the officers will need to think carefully about where they position them. So obviously, if you put them underneath some trees, then they're not going to get enough light and so on. So the positions of them will likely move, and that's all part of the thinking that's going into their replacement.
But also, when they're in the sun, you can't see the screen.
That's so, yeah.
So it's a bit chicken and egg.
Well, no, you can slant the solar panel differently from the thing you're looking at.
There are, I don't think our machines at the moment, but I definitely in Oxford City, you can't read the machines because the sun's shining on them and everybody's like this trying to see. I'm sure it's not just because I'm.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity to sort any problems like that out when you're installing a new one. It's not difficult to rotate it slightly, and providing you've got somewhere to stand in front of the machine.
And will those machines will be council machines or will they be Saba machines?
I think they're council ones, but John, can you confirm that the machines, the new
Yes.
ticket machines belong to the council? Yes.
Yes, the big council machines.
But it does sound like there may be some complexities in terms of location, and so that will involve some negotiation and discussion with Saba, presumably, around the work that he's doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, because I think one of the concerns we had in previous meetings was about older machines not working,
Reliability.
losing a lot of
Yeah.
income, customers being confused. But it sounds like that's
Could you actually put the old machines into Henley?
we've got enough going on in Henley. Councillor Stevens.
I just wondered whether there's an opportunity to move to a ticketless system instead of replacing machines to move to a different system.
That was approved at cabinet.
Yes.
Cabinets.
Both
Sorry,
cabinets
quite recently.
approved
Moved
that.
to a ticketless system.
Okay, so they're not ticket machines anymore, they're pay
Payment
machines.
machines.
Virtual
Yeah.
tickets.
So you won't be replacing individual machines in car parks. You'll be doing a whole car park at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to end up with some ticket machines, some solar powered pay machines.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Lost John.
Well, when we've got the agreement, we can discuss with the provider exactly the rollout. As Sue has said, we need to focus on the machines that are the oldest and the worst, the most temperamental, and make sure they're dealt with first. But you're right, we can't, if we're going to move to a ticketless machine, and that still needs some consultation that officers are working on, because it's a change to the car parking order and how we manage the car park. So it does require a full consultation process, and for that consultation results to go back for cabinet to agree. But once it is agreed, then we'll work with the provider as to where the rollout of the installation of the machines. But as you say, we can't have ticketless and ticket machines in the same place. So we'll have to do a whole car park in one go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask about whether we've identified which car parks have particular signal dead spots around them, because I can think of some where, yeah, you're kind of wandering around trying to get a signal. And if we're now going to go over to digital, that will suddenly become quite important, because, you know, if you've got a ticket machine, you can dive and see if you've got the coins and just get yourself a ticket. But if you haven't got a signal and that's the only thing that's available, then I mean, not so much here, but down south by the beaches, there's an awful lot where you have to walk a long way away before you can get your ticket. So it's a known problem. And I wondered if we looked into that about our signal coverage.
So you'll still be able to pay with coins. So you won't have, we're talking about ticketless. So it means that you won't get a ticket to display in your car. But you can still pay by coins if you haven't got, if I understand correctly, you're saying you haven't got a signal on your phone to pay by phone, is that right?
Okay.
Yeah. And will you still be able to pay by card as
Yes,
well?
you'll still be able to pay out the machine. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
by
you'll still be
card
able-
as well as the, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
yeah,
cards that's most popular.
The type of payment's not changing. It's the fact that when you pay, or you don't pay for the free period, at the moment you get a ticket, a paper, a little square bit of paper, and you go and put that in your car. If you pay by cash or pay by card, that you won't get that piece of paper anymore. The expiry time will be displayed on the screen, and you'll have to remember what your expiry time is.
Thank you, John. I think as ever, the comms around that is going to be vital, and I think we could. Yeah.
Just
Okay. Yeah. A couple more. Councillor Snowden, then Councillor Shelter.
Yeah, just going back to the survey. One of the things I get from residents in Didcot is the fact that there's no electric charging points in the Didcot car park. And I suppose with that question to yourself, are you getting any feedback from that? And question to the cabinet member: why is it that all the other towns, the small towns like Henley and Tame and Wallingford, have got multiple, you know, Henley and Wallingford's the job have both got electric charging points in multiple car parks. Didcot, the largest town in South Oxfordshire, still haven't got a single charging point. So is there why is that? And do you get any issues? Do people contact you asking why you haven't got any electric charging points in Didcot? Because I know I do.
I'll hand it over to officers, but I can remember you raising that before when we first saw them in the. Well, no, I thought the answer then was that Didcot were going to receive them under a different scheme. But if they still hadn't had them, that's really not very good. And they're not on the list for the next lot coming, I presume for the same reason. So I'm afraid our officers will have to answer that
I
one.
might be able to answer that. So because from a smaller town, one of the feasibility studies was how can the public get electric charging points without us putting them in, and the answer was no. There were no companies, there was nowhere. So we put in quite a few in Farringdon, and I suspect Didcot's got quite a few places where you could charge a car, probably cheaper than the council one.
I thought we were all leading by example.
Yeah. John, can I bring you into this discussion?
Yeah. So officers are just about to get the authorisation to delegate the authority to Andrew Busby as head of service to award a contract to a charge point operator to operate new charging points in car parks across South and Vale, but also in collaboration with the other districts across the whole of Oxfordshire, including the City Council and the County Council. And we've been working for a number of years now to agree these new EV charging points across the County Council. It's money that's funded from central government, and we're just about to announce and agree the award of that contract. I can't tell you who that is at the moment, but it's something that we've been working very hard with the other districts. So it will be a county-wide rollout of literally hundreds of more electric vehicle charging points, which will include Edinburgh Drive car park in Didcot, definitely. Thank you.
I thought it was going to say people in Didcot can't afford an electric car.
Thank you for raising that, Councillor Snowden. I think that's an important point. Thank you, John, for confirming that. That's really good news. Okay, guys, I'd like to move us to, unless there's any further questions, to just a discussion, because our final slide is our recommendation that Scrutiny Committee considers the performance of SABA against the key performance indicators in delivering the car park operations contract for the period between 1st of April 24 to 31st of March 2025, and makes any comments before a final assessment on performance is made. But as ever, our job is to make recommendations to the executives of our two councils, and that is what I have a number of bullet points to suggest, but I welcome comments from committee on our recommendations. So first of all, the performance of SABA themselves, but also following on from that discussion, whether there's any recommendations we want to make to our cabinets following our discussion. Councillor Gaveshan.
Well, my generalised comment is that I think SABA performed very well. Certainly on the paying conditions, they responded to our criticism last year. And in fact, on all the KPIs, you can see that they are fulfilling what we have asked for. So, from my point of view, just praise. To be honest, I can't think of anything to improve apart from what is in the report about the replacement of the machines and reducing Henley's debt to society.
Thank you, Stefan. Any other comments?
Yeah, I agree. Overall, pat on the back. The report seems very positive. I think we need to be mindful as councillors to be listening to our residents and feedback from them, so that if we do feel the homework, self-marked homework, isn't representative of our public's experience, we can raise that to this body if needs be. I think we need to perhaps look at some of the KPIs evolving, which may be around the technology working, the difficulty using the apps, or the working performance of the machines at the moment is around physical working, but actually how difficult it is. Does it put people off legal parking in our car parks if it's very difficult to get the app and book your car parking the day before or whatever it is. And I personally would like to see that 700 figure wrapped down a little bit so we can see what violations are and how that's being dealt with.
Right.
I don't dispute that you're dealing with 700. It seems a lot to me, even though you say it isn't a lot, but they're dealt with within 5 days. That's quite impressive.
So it's disaggregation of the figures around the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it may not be something that we pull in all the time, but just a spot check of something would be useful.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
One comment to my comment, sorry, I apologize, which is also praise for Sabbath for responding to the training of their operatives as well.
Yeah.
Because that has clearly reduced the number of confrontational situations and the number of PCMs you have had to scrap. So that's been very good. Sorry, I apologize.
That's fine. Sorry. So I was just picking up on your point in terms of granularity. I mean, if we're always hitting 100% APIs, then I think we need to look to make those more granular. So you're not 100% all the time, because you can see the moving the bar up a bit more with some of the KPIs.
Excellent, thank you. So in terms of our discussion, I think these are the kind of points that I think we've collectively come to, is that, and I think one of the really interesting points that our colleagues from SABA made was that actually they've seen more feedback coming through customer services. And I think that that's something that's not necessarily reflected in the KPIs that we're asking SABA to perform on. So I wonder whether we can ask our cabinet members with officers to think about becoming a bit more sophisticated and how we get feedback, as you say, comments on the app, whether we're using our comms team, whether we're getting feedback through Facebook, making sure that feedback coming from councillors is picked up, so that we are thinking a bit more in a sophisticated way about our customer satisfaction, particularly if SABA are noticing that there's more coming through the councils rather than through their own methods. And so that's one. I think it's really important that actually we ask Cabinet to take on board the comments that have been made around the real living wage, the effect of that on the improvement, not just of the contract in terms of the percentages, but as we comment, the ability then to deliver better training, which has made staff safer, improved interactions with customers. So I think that's really important. We've had a discussion about, or we mentioned West Berks having their services in-house, and I think would committee agree that that's something we would ask our cabinet members to be really conscious of as we move towards LGR, is keeping that as a possible route.
Well, I would say that's already in the PowerPoint presentation, that when LGR happens, when we know what's going on, then there are lots of possibilities. Because if it jumps into the Oxfordshire camp, Oxfordshire have their own wagon anyway, and if it becomes a Ridgeway, then the West Berkshire comes into play. So it would be wise of Cabinet to keep all options open.
Keep all options open. Yeah, we also need to be mindful that we actually run a really successful contracting out operation. So maybe these in-house organisations would rather use our model.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's where we can show
value.
Best practice is being confident in saying, no, actually this system works really well. Okay, perfect, thank you. So it's about keeping all contract options open, particularly given that we clearly have a high performing contract here. I think we do have some concerns around accessibility. So as we're looking, presumably there will be an equalities impact assessment done on the new machines.
I expect so, but John, please correct me if.
Yeah, thanks. As part of the contract award, there's an equality impact assessment within the ICMD.
Okay, excellent. But yes, I think we have had some concerns about accessibility. So perhaps that's particularly as we're talking about feedback, is making sure that we're picking up on those, any concerns that come through. Councillor Snowden raised that there's no EV charging in Didcot currently, and that's been raised before, but it sounds like that's coming, which is exciting, and I'm sure you'll keep on top of it. But I think if cabinet members could keep an eye on that, that would be great. And then we've had just looking at the KPIs, we've got a whole line of 100% KPIs. So particularly as we're looking towards new contracts, potential new contracts, and it might be something that we work as we look at how we work with other councils. How do they measure their KPIs? How do we disaggregate interesting figures? And how do we really make sure that performance is being monitored? So I would like to recommend that we have considered the performance of SABA, and that we are, as a committee, are generally very impressed, and would like to thank colleagues at SABA. I'm particularly impressed, Nigel and Andy, by how personally you know this contract and are involved in this contract. And clearly, it's working well generally, and particularly, I think the committees would like to note the emphasis on paying conditions and training that's clearly happened in the last couple of years. So thank you very much. But in terms of recommendations to Cabinet, it's our recommendations regarding customer satisfaction. For the Cabinet to take on board comments that have been made around real living wage, to keep all contracts options open, and to make sure that we're taking on or mindful of taking on concerns around accessibility. Would anybody like to propose that? Councillor Bentley, thank you. Do I have a seconder for those recommendations? Councillor Stevens, Councillor Bentley, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to add anything? Final comments?
Just, it's not probably for this meeting, but I wondered, do we collect any information about capacity and usage? So it's probably not the SABA, but how often are our car parks completely full when
I can give you the stats on hand then.
I suspect it's pretty full, but I'm thinking around the electric points as well, because some of the criticism is, why have you put them in? They're always empty. Half the car park's taken up with spaces that and it's too expensive. That's why we don't use that. There are other places, maybe we should be reclaiming those as car park spaces if the rest of the car park is full.
Just very quickly then, I mean, either Cabinet members or John Backley, do we have those stats?
You do. Yes, I think so. I've seen them.
I've not seen those for car parks that
not so much on usage of EV chargers, although I was driving past the outside of Wallingford the other day, which was very empty and not used when they were first installed, but there are actually 3 charging overnight, which is, was a reasonable increase. I think you've got to give it time. Well, Henley was straight in, it's good utilisation, but the other places have been a bit slower, but I think they are getting there. But I don't know figures on that, but there are figures on, utilisation of car parking spaces.
When does that come out? Do we get to see that?
I guess you could ask to see it, or ask for your particular one that you're interested in if you wish to know. I would suggest an email to John, actually. Yeah, probably the most efficient way of getting it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, just in terms of building on Councillor Stevens' point of granularity, one of the things I found most interesting from the presentation was a lot of the things here are like responding within 10 days. But one of the things that found really interesting is that on a couple of these metrics, there was a lot of response within 5 days, for example. So I just wondered, and I guess it's partly to officers, it might be statutory that it has to be 10 working days, and that's what we measure. But I'd be quite interested to see how many of these responses were within, say, a shorter period, so going above and beyond. So I just wonder that for a future report, whether we could maybe have that level of granularity. And similarly, this is SABA's performance from 2024 to 25. It might be nice if next year's report has a way of more graphically illustrating any improvements, or indeed, hopefully not, but anything where things are getting worse. Because I would just, a small plea that, like, the KPs are very small. The report was quite difficult to read in terms of the size of the writing, and an occasional graph or a pie chart demonstrating something might have enabled us to read it with a bit more clarity. So that's just a little plea from me in terms of small writing. And for someone who hadn't been here at the previous meeting, I must confess, it took me a while. So I was very glad for the comprehensive overview, but that's just a couple of things about granularity and maybe just something to make it a bit more captivating if possible.
You'll spot the guy who's come from the planning committee. Pictures. We don't get pretty pictures in this committee.
Well, we sit on this committee now. Anyway.
But thank you. Yes, I think if we can add then in, if cabinet members can think constructively about KPIs, presentation, and thinking about, because there's no point having a report which is just fully 100%. If we can think more.
Can I just say, if and when you get time to go through these KPIs and read what they actually say in detail, rather than be given coloured stripy pictures, if anybody's got any suggestions on how we can modify any of them, leave any of them out, I think there's one that's actually not relevant anymore because it doesn't exist. Well, please let us know as soon as possible so that, when we're going for this 2-year extension, we can maybe put 1 or 2 modifications in. I don't think we're looking to do anything large scale, but if there are tweaks that we can put in, please come back with suggestions.
Very last word.
I would having us against having be careful with KPIs that you don't artificially massage them.
Yes.
You don't want a KPI that is specifically designed to give a 50% performance. I mean, I always prefer, when I was marking homework at school, it was either 100% or it was crap. So the whole thing is, if they are good KPIs and they're doing 100%, celebrate it.
Yeah. Well, you could also go to 110%. So,
but I think we have seen some important changes in the performance, and I think that's really good, and we picked up on that. So I am going to thank everybody on this call for joining us this evening, for all the work that's been done, and particularly for thinking about the extra questions that we've asked you to look at. Thank you both to our cabinet members, Councillor Clare and Councillor Cooper. And with that, I shall close this meeting at 7:59 p.m. Thank you ever so much, everybody.
Thank you, Catherine Walter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got it.